I'm thrilled to have with me today Amy Copa, who is the Marketing Director of Heritage Hall in Leesburg, Virginia. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm really happy to be here today.
Thank you. So tell me about Heritage Hall.
Heritage Hall is a skilled nursing facility, 164 beds. We take Medicaid, Medicare, private pay. We do short-term skilled. So when somebody's in the hospital, but they're still not quite ready to be home safely, they can transition to skilled nursing facility like Heritage Hall, get that physical therapy, occupational therapy, as well as the 24/7 nursing care until they're ready to safely transition home. Most often it's with home health care at that time.
Okay.
We also have the long-term care, and that is for people who need that 24/7 daily assistance with their activities of daily living, such as bathing, dressing, and eating, toileting, things along those lines. So they are there permanently. In addition to that, we have that small memory care unit, because that's not something that you often would see in a skilled nursing facility, because most often they're either coming and going home within 20 to 30 days, or they're living there full time and they're in their room. Heritage Hall is not like that. We want them to have that interaction, those activities, that socialization, as well as the quality care. After yesterday, I was our director of nursing has been there for 25 years. Okay, so that is a big deal, especially in this industry where you see such a high turnover. Nursing alone.
Yes.
She's been at Heritage Hall for 25 years, and we tried to throw a surprise party, and we were successful for the very first time, I guess, ever. And how do I explain it? The pure happiness and support that she gets from her staff. They were so happy. There were people crying to see her be celebrated. They genuinely look to her not just as a leader and a boss, but she has the empathy. She knows her patients, her families, her residents. She knows the daughter that lives in Texas and checks on her mom every day at 12 o'clock. She goes out of her way. There have been times when staffing has been an issue and she throws on her scrubs to be a CNA. That is quality of care. Same thing with our administrator. She's the director of this facility. She has her CNA license. She will throw on her scrubs and go on that floor when they need her. To me, that is leadership, that is care, that is empathy. The company's motto is let our family take care of yours, but they believe in taking care of their family as well.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And like you said, there's a very high turnover oftentimes in this industry. So I would like to talk to you all about memory care. Let's just talk about memory care.
Yes.
And the reason is, we're an organization that works with the unpaid family caregiver to those with dementia or Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm. So generally, when people come to us and they join our community, they're part of our community, they're at home. Perhaps they just got a diagnosis. Perhaps they just start seeing the signs. It might be kind of early. And we feel like it's our job to take care of the caregiver. That we say all the time that as adult children of parents with dementia, you understand. We both, have experienced this personally, but we know that as adult children with a parent with dementia, we spend so much time worrying about the person with dementia that we forget to watch our healthy parent. And that healthy parent is often the caregiver and undergoing just an overwhelming amount of stress. So I think the reason I want to talk to you is I think there's a lot of people that don't understand memory care. They're very afraid of memory care for various reasons. Yes. There's the guilt involved, as the caregiver has a guilt that I wanted to do this. I told my spouse that I would always take care of him or I would always take care of her, and I can't do it anymore, And so in our family, when my grandmother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, there was no diagnosis. They assumed she had Alzheimer's. It would not be until she passed away and they did an autopsy could they, definitively say that she had Alzheimer's.
Right.
But my parents moved her in with them. They were the primary caregivers for her until they couldn't do it anymore. And in their case, it was not so much the level of care that she required wasn't the deciding factor. It was that she was an exit seeker. She was a wanderer. And so she would wander out of the house and no one would know it. And, she would be a statistic. There's a lot of wooded areas around where they were, and it was just not safe. It was not safe for her. So, and so she was moved into a nursing home. There was no such thing as memory care back then. And so that was like early 90s. It was a nursing home, or what we would call today, skilled nursing. That's where she was. And there were other people that had dementia-related issues, but memory care is not that. No. And I think I really want to help educate families about what memory care really is and why they should really, not close the door on the idea of enlisting memory care should the time come.
Absolutely. Right off the bat, they should be looking at these communities or facilities, depending on where their finances are and at what stage their loved one is with dementia and Alzheimer's. Are the caregivers dementia certified? A lot of times I'll meet with families and or a nurse will describe a patient's behavior as aggressive or combative. But they're not taking into consideration is things have changed for this patient. Maybe it's not that they're combative, but they're afraid.
They're afraid.
There's other methods on how to interact with, and it's about not just preserving the quality of life and excellent care for them, but it's respecting them as a person, because they are still that person, and knowing how to identify and interact is going to, how do I put this, that is the key to providing that excellent care. And you and I both know my personal experience with this. People who are in their 70s, 80s, 90s, they have this preconceived notion of the nursing homes back from the 70s. I think a really good first step for families who are entertaining making a transition like this is to do tours. Talk to a care manager. Talk to somebody like me who works at the facility and can walk you through and answer those questions. It's not the same as reading about the reviews on the website. Seeing it firsthand is what makes the difference. It's very eye-opening to know, they're not people parked in wheelchairs at the nurse's station that are sedated because you only have 2 nurses. We don't want that. We want them to be who they are. We want them to be safe. We want them to have that quality of care. There's so many things now, today, technology alone, that enables our industry to provide that care and let that spouse and child go back to being the spouse and child instead of the caregiver, which is so important, because it's not only quality of life for your loved one, but your own quality of life as well. You want to go back to being the person who can just be there and love them instead of having to worry about toileting and feeding and making sure,
yes.
It's hard when you go from, in my situation, the parent, you want to be the child. And it's hard when the roles are reversed. And a lot of people have a lot of difficulty accepting that. I think education is also a big key.
Education is huge, which is why we're here, right? So I would like to step back just for a second, because I think what I really want people to understand from the very beginning is just when we say people will say it's a locked unit. It's a locked unit, and that locked unit scares people to death.
Right.
Because they feel like their loved one is going to be put into a facility behind locked doors and no one's going to know what's going on. Right. And they're going to be sitting all alone. And that is not what we mean when we say a locked unit, right?
Correct.
And I just want people to understand, a locked unit, a locked memory care unit is a facility that keeps our loved ones safe, in the sense that exit seeking or wandering with dementia is so common
Absolutely.
So it keeps them safe that they can't get out and wander away and get out of the building and into the street and into the woods like my grandmother would have done.
Right.
But the locked unit, it's there for their safety, but behind those locked doors is a whole new world.
Yes.
And people don't understand that, and a lot of families, they don't know that. They hear, oh, locked unit, they think of their only experience maybe visiting a grandparent in a nursing home. That's what they think of.
Correct.
So
Correct.
a perfect example, my dad was in a memory care in the state of Texas.
Okay.
And it was a locked memory care. It was only memory care. There was nothing, no other skilled nursing. Every single person that was there had dementia, some form of dementia or Alzheimer's. And it was locked. We had to get buzzed in to go in the front door. But within that memory care, there might have been 5 or 6 doors that went outside. And one went to a garden, one went to a little seating area, one went to a little pathway, the small little sidewalk.
Yeah.
They could come, my dad could come and go all he wanted. He could put his coat on and walk outside. He could go, if you wanted to garden, there was garden beds set up. That's what the locked unit was.
Yes.
It was locked for his safety so that all the doors led back inside. There was no door that led outside. But, it's a scary thing, especially if you've never experienced dementia in your family. It's a scary thing to think, well, so-and-so told me that the memory care is a locked unit. They hear that and they shut down. But what you find inside behind those locked doors is exactly what you were alluding to. It is a family. It is a committed group of professionals who understand dementia, who understand the activities that will best, enable their cognitive impairments to kind of come back to life, right?
Absolutely.
They have programs. In the case of my dad, there was happy hour once a week. There was game night. There was live music. There was an outdoor garden. There was an outdoor fire pit that sometimes they would go out and they would, do things like that.
Absolutely.
There was, they would do crafts, and, the Home Depot would come over, and the Home Depot would do some of the same crafts that they do with children. They build a birdhouse or, things like that. So this is the biggest thing I want to tell people, and I want, to hear from you who work in this industry, is a locked memory care is not locking you out of your loved one's life, but it's making them safe. You're welcome.
Yes.
Right? You're welcome.
Absolutely.
It's making them safe. And because of that, the stress of the caregiver, who was, our main concern, the stress to the caregiver is completely taken away.
Exactly.
Because not only are you making your loved ones safe so they're not wandering out in your neighborhood, if that's the case, in the case of my dad, but you're seeing your loved one smiling, happy,
yes.
Engaged. And you see the staff and you see the community that loves on them. That's what you don't know.
Exactly.
And that's one of the things you don't know. And that's what I want everyone to know. I want you to know that memory care is a wonderful thing, and it's expensive.
It is expensive. It is expensive.
So, we're it's not, everyone can't, I know that everyone can't afford to privately pay for a memory care. But those that are interested in memory care or have questions about memory care, we want you to understand what you're looking at and what it really means.
Absolutely. But on that same note, with the memory care that you would find in an assisted living, so that would definitely be private pay. But at Heritage Hall, with our memory care, yes, you have the private pay option, but we can also work with Medicaid. And that would help defray that cost because it is a skilled nursing facility, not assisted living. So we have Medicaid beds.
So that's really interesting, and people need to know that that's an option.
So just like when somebody is getting private duty at home, they get a Medicaid waiver,
Right.
and Medicaid decides how many hours, etc., that they can have this private duty caregiver at the home. On a different level with skilled nursing facility or long-term care, Medicaid would come in and do the financial. I think they go 5 years back to check finances and evaluate not just the finances but the need.
Right.
And then I think it's called the DSNP plan, and then they would qualify, and Medicaid would pay that for that stay.
So if a family is in desperate need of memory care, and they know that they are financially not able, where do they start? Do they start by asking the facilities? Do they start by calling Medicare and asking for a referral? Where do they start?
Go to social services in your county,
Okay.
not just your state. And again, so in Virginia, you only accept Virginia Medicaid. You can't come from Maryland. With Maryland Medicaid, you have to qualify for Virginia Medicaid.
Which is very common, right? That's a very common thing.
Absolutely.
So when we talk about your county social services, that would be things like the county area for the aging.
So they would be able to put you in touch with the right social worker,
right?
Who could kick off that process,
right?
A geriatric care manager would also have that information, be able to help you with that.
So if you're not engaged with a geriatric care manager and you're a family, so let's just make this hypothetical family. You have mom who's healthy, although completely stressed out as the caregiver to her husband, and you have some adult children that, whether they're geographically located or not. You have a family of adult children and you have a spouse caring for a loved one. Mm-hmm. Usually what we see is, the spouse, the primary caregiver, is completely overwhelmed, and they are not the ones who are going to ask a lot of the questions. It's oftentimes the adult children who come into town or recognize the health of their healthy parent declining, so then they try to get involved, right?
Yes.
And so we will hopefully be touching both. Within our community, we have adult children and we have, primary family caregivers. I want people to know, that every state across the country, because our caregivers are not all in Virginia, they're not all in Texas. We have caregivers across the country.
Yes.
So almost every state for sure. Most counties have what's called the area for the aging, that some will say the AAA,
not the travel.
Not the travel AAA, but the AAA, and they have other services available to people in the county, and a quick phone call can help start the process, yes. Right? You can call us, like we get calls all the time, and we will make that initial call to the area for the aging, or, the caseworkers. We will find someone that we will introduce them to, and they can kind of take it from there.
Exactly.
But people will say, someone said this to me last week, well, what's a care manager? They're doing it 100% on their own. They don't know that there's these options available to them. And I think, from my own experience, and you can agree or disagree, yes. I think a care manager is probably the first call that I would make.
To me, a geriatric care manager is your navigator, your compass through that crisis.
Right,
situation.
Your quarterback almost,
Absolutely. And they're Switzerland.
Yes.
They are
yes.
Switzerland. And they can help navigate the family dynamic with the sole goal of the patient
yes.
in mind. They can lay out your options because they know those options. That's their job, is to know those options. That's my dream job.
But that's their job, and they know the most important thing is there are care managers across the country who understand dementia inside and out. Absolutely. And so, if you're looking for a care manager in your area, make sure that that's a question that you ask. Are you familiar with dementia? And, because that will help that care manager, guide them down the right street, right?
Because it is a different dynamic.
It's a very different dynamic. And you have people who are diagnosed with dementia. You have people that aren't diagnosed, but their family assumes they have dementia. You have people that the family thinks they have Alzheimer's disease when in fact maybe they have Parkinson's, and they were never diagnosed. It's just the memory issues make everyone feel like it's Alzheimer's disease.
And there's those different stages.
And there's the different stages.
And knowing the options for each stage. A geriatric care manager, they're able to see the whole picture.
Right.
And be able to plan for the future.
Right.
That makes sense.
It makes total sense.
Yeah.
It makes total sense. So they can help a family navigate from the very beginning. They just understand, what this is going to look like, because this is what they do for a living. Mm-hmm. So this is what this is going to look like. And, families are beginning to get a little bit more comfortable with home care. Not, there's still a lot of people that are not super comfortable with having a stranger in their home.
Right.
And,
sometimes they see it as an intrusion
yes.
in their personal life. And
yes.
I respect that. I understand that.
Yes. But I think there's also benefits, and this is a little bit off topic, but not really, because it all does relate. But
it does.
I think there's another benefit when you have a dementia-trained home care, when you engage with a dementia-trained home care, that they can help you kind of see some of the signs as the disease progresses that maybe you don't know what that means. So right. they might be able to say, we're noticing this or such is different lately, and as a result, you might want to go talk to your physician about this. Or if they become like family and close, which often happens when people bring in help, they kind of stay for the long haul. They become sort of a family, and they can kind of tell them what their experiences are.
Absolutely.
But these are what lead to memory care, right? These are the people that help navigate and help lead families to memory care.
And when you are in a situation and you are researching your options and you are looking for your different, whether it's a caregiver in the home or a memory care unit or at an assisted living or a memory care in a skilled nursing facility, let's talk about what dementia training they have. Is it a one-time training and orientation? Is it a certification course with ongoing education? And how often? Is it hands-on? Is it virtual? It makes a lot of difference. And you don't just want the training and the certification, you want that experience.
Right. And we definitely want people to hear that, and I want the family caregivers to know that you should feel confident in asking these questions.
Absolutely.
Like, you should never feel shy about asking for those types of questions, because this is your loved one that you're talking about, and this is your own sanity at the same time, so the idea of engaging with memory care, it's just as much for the caregiver as it is for the person with the disease, because it is too much. It can become too much. And, in our case, our mom, her doctor started calling us because they were trying to get her to consider memory care because he was a wanderer. She didn't sleep at night. She didn't, they saw she lost so much weight and her health was declining. And because, we had set up so the doctors would communicate with me, thankfully. I'm so grateful I did that, with HIPAA laws and everything. The doctor finally picked up the phone and said, if you don't do something about your dad and you don't help your mom make the decision to move your dad to memory care, you will lose your mom before you lose your dad. Her health is that at risk.
I think that doctor is one of a kind, and
I agree.
Went above and beyond, and I know you are grateful to that.
I am. I get like goosebumps because I think just like children, when we're raising children in our home, they're growing before our eyes and they're changing. We don't see it. We're with them every single day.
Right.
And as a caregiver and a family member, we're with it. We're doing this every single day. We don't notice what subtle little things, or we think he or she's just having they're just having a bad day.
Right.
We don't understand that it's really not a bad day. This is the next progression of the disease, which is they're never going to get better.
Exactly.
You know, so until something changes with the treatment, they're never going to get better. So once the disease progresses, there's no going back.
There is no going back. And as that disease progresses and they lose more of their cognitive abilities, you don't want them stuck in a bed in a hospital gown. You want them to get the same quality care that you and I would expect for ourselves. You want them bathed and clean. You want them dressed. Do they want to listen to music? They might not be able to communicate, but you knew once upon a time that music was something that helped them. And you'd see a difference sometimes. You put the music on and they're calmer.
Right.
You can see that. They're still in there.
Right.
So that's why it's so important to have that open communication with the family to get their story ahead of time. And you know.
So that's a really important point that I had forgotten about. That's part of the onboarding. I don't know what I was input. Like that's part of the onboarding into like a memory care facility. Stumble on my own words, but it's part of the onboarding where they will ask you all about your loved one's history, their family, their job, their hobbies, the things that really brought them joy. And I remember filling that out at the time, not really understanding why I was doing that. But what you see is these amazing people, that the staff members at the memory care, they know that he spoke Russian, and you know, they maybe something is on the television dealing with Russia, and they would make sure that he knew about it. You know, the music is a really big thing. So before we could go on. I mean, we could talk all day, but there's some more technical things I really want to talk about, and that is when you put a loved one into a memory care, do they stay there through the end of their life? Or is there a possibility that the level of care down the road might be more than a memory care can handle? Does that make sense?
It makes sense. So with Heritage Hall, the memory care unit there, that is for those people. So we have all different
levels
of care within the memory care unit. We do have those that are still walking around. We have some that are in wheelchairs. We have some that can't communicate anymore and need assistance with everything. So most often when they come to us, they are there till the end. But with a memory care, say at an assisted living, that might be different. And do they have the staff to do the 24/7 care for somebody who can't communicate, that they need to get to the toilet, or has to actually be fed, like if they're on a puree diet, then they can't open the milk or take the lid off their glass or stir sugar. They cannot even communicate that they want
sugar and cream in their coffee.
So knowing that, again, part of the story, but you have to have the staff that's available to do, because it's a lot of one-on-one care. So at the skilled nursing level, that is what comes into play. You have the 24/7 nursing, so there's always somebody there overnight. They're always checking. They're never alone. Then you have, like I said, we have some that like to wander around. We have some in the wheelchairs. We're able to redirect. Somebody keeps looking for his, he's looking for the bus stop, and we're like, oh yeah, well, the bus isn't coming for another hour, so we can let's go sit and play cards, or you want to watch this movie, because in our memory care, they have their own activities room and their own dining room. They don't have to eat in their rooms. We encourage the socialization. We have somebody who comes in and does karaoke there. Every month we have, church services there. Families can come in and visit and take them out for a meal if they're up at that level and they're comfortable with that. It's not you go in and you're locked away forever.
That was the experience that our family had. It was the the residents, they ate together, they snacked together, but they celebrated everything. They celebrated birthdays, they celebrated Mardi Gras. I remember one time going to see my dad, and he had on this purple hat and the Mardi Gras piece. They were having a Mardi Gras party, and I missed it. I didn't realize that was happening that day, and I walked in, and I still smile about that because, that's what's happening in this locked memory care, right?
Yeah.
That's what's happening. So what in the lack of progress that we've seen in the world of Alzheimer's and dementia, because I think in some ways not much has changed since my grandmother was diagnosed. There's still no treatment, and there's still no cure, and there's still never been a survivor, So if we get to the unpleasant part of Alzheimer's disease, what has come such a long way is this. The idea that interacting with someone that has cognitive impairment, activities based on, their level of cognitive decline, music, art, community, these are all things that, we know now it makes such a difference. Their quality of life and the dignity that everyone deserves, so they have an opportunity to live in a community that loves on them and knows what they're dealing with. But what we also know is that because of the professionals inside of the memory care, your staff, they're professionals and they are trained in dementia. So when our loved one is things are changing, perhaps they're no longer swallowing, and there are things like that. You're going to have care plan, meetings with the families, and you're going to be able to communicate with the families. Where if this is happening with us at home, I'm just getting frustrated because he won't drink.
Right. Or he's playing with this food.
Or he's playing with his food.
He won't swallow it. He won't take his medication.
He bites his food and he's chewing around and he won't swallow it, and I'm getting frustrated. When in fact, because you're living in it the day to day, you're living in it, and right. You don't have the respite. Therefore, I'm not even thinking about the fact that he's not swallowing his food because he doesn't know anymore to swallow his food. And that is, that's where we've come so far, And I want everyone to know that, memory care, while in many cases it's not an option financially, that there are other options, right? And
absolutely,
and also, there are the benefits are enormous to the caregiver. They're enormous.
Absolutely.
So you're going through a time right now with your family.
I am.
Just the stress on, the family, the adult children,
it's hard. It's almost like you've already lost your family member, but they're still alive.
Right.
When she's insisting that she has to go home to her mother, or she wants to call her sister, and they want to say, Mom's been dead for 50 years and your sister died 18 years ago. Having that conversation with somebody going through that pain each and every time. Trained in dementia,
yes.
I knew to redirect, and I'd say, you know what, your mom is not going to be here for another hour or two. Why don't we let's go watch Heart to Heart, because that was one of her favorite shows. Or, just being able to redirect and acknowledge, I know you want to get the kids from the bus stop, but remember they have a late day today. Or just being able to calm them and quell that anxiety instead of insisting, I'm right and you're wrong. And you're going to have that fight over and over again and keep contributing to that anxiety.
To the anxiety and the stress.
And the pain and the stress.
Yes, for sure.
So educate yourself.
Yeah.
I just educate, and go to your support groups and talk to one another. Something that I've learned from dementia, was it DFA?
Oh, Dementia Friendly America.
Dementia Friendly America. Talking to people who have gone through this with loved ones, and they lose once somebody's diagnosed and they continue to get worse, they become isolated. They stop going to church, or they stop going to gatherings, and it's just them at home, and that adds to the stress. You need that support group.
So that was exactly what happened with my mom. They lived in a community that was independent living. It had independent living, assisted living, memory care, and rehab all in the same community. But it was brand new, and so only the independent living was finished. And so I tell people it was like a cruise ship on land. You know, some of these communities, you get together and you eat in a dining room, this beautiful dining room. You have activities. There's doctors downstairs. There's PT would come if you needed it, and this amazing opportunity. And my mom was so uncomfortable with my dad, the stories that my dad would tell, because she felt like he was lying. Mm-hmm. So someone would say to, oh, nice to meet you, because they would put you at a different table every night. Mm-hmm. And, you know, my mom would introduce herself and my dad, and they would be like, oh, nice to meet you, Frank. You know, what did you do before you retired? And my dad would say, I was in the Marines. And they would start talking about the Marines. My mom would just get so frustrated because they're like, no, you're not. No, you're not. You were in the Marines when you were 18. You know, and so she stopped all social things.
Right.
And she would go downstairs and get her meals to go, and they would sit by themselves. They never went out. We started taking my dad to adult day care to give her a break. She did nothing. She did nothing the whole day when he was at adult day because she had completely shut down.
Yeah.
She was so nervous about how he was going to be when he got home and how many times she was going to have to like try to not get him to leave that she was in this downhill spiral. It was awful.
I think a lot of people try to tough it out alone, and it's detrimental not just to your health, but to your loved one's health.
Oh, it is. It's the caregivers, and that's our concern, right? Like, we just want caregivers to understand that there's no shame in asking for help. I know sometimes you feel guilt, but there's no shame in asking for help. And the help that you can get, especially in a situation like a memory care facility, the benefits to both parties, to you as a caregiver and your loved one with the disease, are tenfold, 100-fold.
I would offer an opportunity. Try a respite stay. Yes. See if the community or the skilled nursing facility with the memory care unit will work with you and maybe do a week or 2 weeks of a respite stay. See how that transition worked. But it also gives you a chance to catch your breath.
And we talk with our caregivers a lot about respite. Well, I need to wrap this up, and I can't thank you enough for coming. We will share your contact information, and we'll share information about Heritage Hall.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much. Keep doing what you're doing, and good luck.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for having me. This was a great conversation. I appreciate it.
Thank you.